Segment of the show is called I Was Here. And it's a special part of the show where we sort of pledge allegiance to the legacy of people that we meet along the way whose story we find uplifting, admirable, and inspirational. Okay, so Marion, it's so nice to have you here for this segment of the show. This segment of the show is called I Was Here. And it's a special part of the show where we sort of pledge allegiance to the legacy of people that we meet along the way whose story we find uplifting, admirable, and inspirational. And for me, you are one of those people in my journey. In Europe and in my life who really made a very great impression. And I would love to share your spirit and your ideologies, your development with a larger audience and here. And I just want to get a little bit of background information about you. I know a lot, but they don't know. So tell us a little bit about your background as a native Berlinerin and.
Okay. Well, thank you, first of all, for having me here.
Of course.
Feel very flattered in a way.
In a way, because we're friends.
Because my life is not really that exciting or hasn't been that exciting. Maybe it turned exciting for me now. As you said, I was born and raised in Berlin and lived a pretty decent life all my life. Then I moved to Potsdam, where I gave birth to a daughter, to my daughter. You know her, Elena, 22 years old now. She's a young woman now. And ever since then, I lived in Potsdam. So there's not really a big move from Berlin to Potsdam.
No, but see, the thing that's interesting for the audience, especially for the international audience, people always want to know from me if they don't get the opportunity to come to Berlin or the Berlin legacy. You are an echt Berlinerin. How far back in your family line does the bloodline go in Berlin?
Actually, not really that far.
Just your parents?
Just me.
Just
actually.
You?
Yeah, I
your
was born in West
Berlin.
Okay. My parents came from, my father actually from what was the former East Germany, the Altmark, and my mom was born in Hamburg. So,
oh, that's right. I remember that from your sister being in Hamburg.
After the war, when everything got split up, and I'm a child of the so-called Iron Curtain, which we fortunately don't have any longer. That's when my parents decided to go to Berlin because of job opportunities, and a nice apartment at that time was good to have because in the 50s Berlin was still not quite up on exactly reconstructing. So that's why they decided to move to Berlin, and that's why I was born. So I'm the first Berliner in my line.
Tell me something about growing up. I remember when I first met you so many years ago, and you used to speak about the American sector. And what that was like as a teenager and like a preteen, like the nightclubs. You said there used to be clubs and there used to be all these activities. And did you grow up in Zehlendorf or?
No, I grew up in Lankwitz, which is part of Steglitz.
Oh yeah, Steglitz.
So it's on the southern part of West Berlin, and we were part, or this part was the so-called American sector at that times. And it was naturally for me to have a boundary around my city because you could not go further than the wall, so to speak, or the frontier around Berlin. But to me, it was natural because I was born in that city. And and I was fond of the military that was stationed there when they had the big parade on the 4th of July. We went there and we saw all the Panzer. I don't have the English word for it. That was exciting. And also the shows they had at the airport Tempelhof.
Yep.
So my parents were into it because they were the savior, more or less, of after
that was the perception of the Americans at that time, is that it was a supportive position rather than the adversary position.
That's how I felt it with my parents, and so we really enjoyed it. And then when I got a little bit elder, then I enjoyed the clubs
Yeah,
as well.
I remember you used to talk. Oh, because where I met you was in a club where
That's true.
you were managing a blues cafe with Gary Detroit Wiggins, and you were managing at the door, handling the money. And I remember walking in, and I will always remember the first time I saw you because it was like I walked in the door, and who was standing there? There was this woman who looked like a human Barbie doll. You were the closest thing to a human Barbie doll I had
Wow.
ever seen. I said, everything, her teeth are perfect, her eyes, her hair, her long brown hair. She was statuesque. And I said, oh God, so this is like, okay, the German Frau, the Deutsche Frau that my mother spoke of always with
Okay.
admirably from her time here with my dad in the military. She's like, oh yes, very, very statuesque, attractive women, well dressed. And so, no, I remember that. But you did. I remember in the mid '90s, you left Berlin and came to Potsdam. And
That's
what was
correct.
that about?
Yeah, after the Iron Curtain came down, um, I moved to Potsdam because I met somebody very special. I founded a family with, and we had a daughter, or have a daughter together. And ever since then, I enjoy living in Potsdam,
It's
even though the
beautiful.
marriage is not there anymore. But
Oh yeah,
my love for
yeah,
Potsdam
yeah,
is
yeah,
still there.
yeah.
So, yeah.
Now, tell me a little bit about your transit. What's interesting for you, particularly at this time, and I was even speaking to a friend of mine about this, in particular about this interview with you, is you were a person who seemingly the universe had already started preparing 5 to 7 years ago for exactly what's happening with the COVID crisis right now. In that you made a major, major life change from the corporate world into a totally different walk of life. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, that's true. I was educated in banking, did that for a lot of years, working in a bank in West Berlin. And then when I moved to Potsdam, I started working in the e-commerce business, which at that time kind of grew up here. And yeah, and then a lot of things happened, and eventually I had a burnout.
Oh, okay.
It was just a little bit too much, as I thought way back then. So I had a burnout, and this was, I guess, one of the major turning point in my life, where I realized that I lost my connection to my body, to my emotions, to my heart, maybe we can say that like this, and was just functioning. And then at a certain point, this body said, no, I'm not gonna function anymore. And this is how I had my burnout. And it was kind of scary because it felt like somebody erased my hard drive, like
Wow.
everything was gone and I couldn't memorize things anymore. And this was really scary. And so I sought for help. And finally, I found help and started getting connected with my body. And what really helped me was to get, well, how I encountered yoga for
Yes.
me. So actually I saw an interview on TV when I was in my depression.
Yes.
And I saw Susanne Fröhlich, who's a German journalist and writer, and she at that time announced her, I think it was a DVD or maybe her book about yoga. And she said a sentence that really resonated with me, or really gave me hope that I could become healthy again. And that sentence was, Yoga macht was mit dir. And somehow this kind of pulled my attention. And I said, okay, yoga macht was with her. Maybe yoga macht was with me
Yeah.
as well. So I bought a DVD and at home, in my little room, I started doing yoga. And I felt how it did me really good. So I started a little morning routine. Ever since then, every morning I do my little routine because I feel that it helped me. And then there was another turning point when I lost my job.
And you were
And
corporate for so many years. You went from banking work, like when I met you, you were like the biggest bank in Germany.
well,
And
maybe not the biggest,
but
but
Sparkasse,
yeah,
that's in Germany.
yeah,
Well,
yeah,
Deutsche Bank, I guess. I don't know.
yeah,
But you were with a major bank, corporate.
yeah,
Then you went to another corporate firm. Then you were with them for what, 15 years or something like
yeah,
this.
yeah.
And then such a change.
And then it was nothing. And at first I was scary again, and I
It
said,
was
"Whoops."
nothing. It just went to nothing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not the youngest anymore. I was 57 at that time, so
Wow. Okay.
being unemployed at that age,
Looking good. Looking good. You're looking
there's
good, girl. That
nothing you're
yoga's doing
really
its
looking
thing.
forward to. But looking back at it now, I think it was the best thing that could happen to me, because I took the time. I didn't know what I wanted to do at that time, but I did know that I no longer wanted to work in an office, because by that time my yoga routine or the movement within my body kind of made me realize sitting all day long is not what is doing me good.
Okay.
So I knew that I didn't want that, but I didn't know what to do at that age, and so I said, okay. Yoga helped me once, so make a yoga teacher Ausbildung,
Yeah. The
and
education for
maybe
that.
then the education, and maybe then I know what I want to do. So making the teacher education for yoga was merely to find my way. I didn't, in the beginning, I didn't want to teach yoga. That was
No.
not
Okay.
the reason why I took up. I just wanted to know what can I do.
Okay.
But then after I started, and I started teaching within my choir, so just for people, because I did it anyway in the morning. So I just invited people to do it with me when we were together on a choir weekend, so to speak, where we rehearse intensively. And the feedback was well, so I said, okay, maybe this is something I could do a little bit more intensive. So I started with people outside my Bekanntenkreis, or with outside my family.
The people that you know, your
Exactly.
acquaintances.
Yeah,
But,
and hired a room and offered yoga lessons there. And actually people came and liked the style. And then while I was still in my education, of course, and my teacher, my yoga teacher, he supported me. He always said, yes, do it. Just practice,
really
and
a mentor.
teach people.
Yeah.
And it will help you with your yoga teaching, and as well, maybe that's what you're going to do.
Yeah.
And this is where I'm now.
Yes. And so what we're talking about is a lot of life changes, okay, and transitions. And one of the things I really in this moment, going back to the COVID crisis of what we are experiencing, if you could share any of your advice as an individual, as a yogi, what would you want to share with people in terms of maintaining and stabilizing? If you could say three things that people should keep in mind as we're going through such uncertain times where we just don't even know what comes next from day to day like this.
Where I would, or what I do, and I would then tell people what might help them, is to really find some time to yourself, where you go within yourself and find peace within you. That's one point, because there's a lot of irritation going on, especially with the COVID thing. I see the polarity within the society right now, pro and contra, and so it's nothing that is really helpful, I guess, for us as human beings,
Not
or
at
for
all.
the earth at all. So I suggest to go within you, find your inner peace, which is to me always there. You just have to go there and find it. And then with lots of love, it, go into the outside world and try to bring your peace and your love to
as
the
much as you
outside
can
world
to
as
others.
much as you can. And that should help your immune
I hope.
system.
Okay.
So that
I
would
was
be
going to
the
say,
next
what do you?
point.
But that was the next
That would
point.
be the
Okay.
next point, to really do something for your immune system. To me, yoga is a perfect way to do this. Singing as well, singing, dancing,
Yeah.
everything
Yes.
that brings the energy in your body to a
Yeah.
higher level is good for your
Vibration.
vagus nerve, which is mainly responsible for your immune system. So that would be my next recommendation, to really, have a good immune system, and try not to have fear or anything dominant
Okay.
your life,
That's
because
one of the biggest
fear
things.
is what's putting down your immune system. Fear is not good for anybody, because it will put you in a reactive state rather than in an active state. And a lot of fear is unfortunately going on right now, and
Yes.
this is really something people should not focus on. And that's why focusing on the better things in life right now is so important.
What is so great about yoga, and from what my limited experience in yoga is, and from a lot of things that you have shared with me about yoga that I am coming into understanding, is through meditation and yoga, is monitoring my thoughts, monitoring one's thoughts. If you can consciously be aware of what you are thinking as the thoughts are coming to you. Be real with yourself and analyze and neutralize those thoughts and face them, like you said, within yourself. It makes all the difference. Then you start to train yourself to not allow certain types of thought patterns to exist.
Exactly. That's what you do with
But I learned that through
meditation.
yoga and through some of the books that you shared with me. And, that's through meditation.
That's through meditation, or maybe also mindfulness, where you really, where you're, what's the word? Observe.
Yes.
Observe yourself. Observe your
Yeah.
feelings. So you see what kind of emotions do you
Awareness.
currently have, what kind of thoughts you have. And the trick is not to be your emotions and be your thoughts, but you're just the observer, because the emotions are part of your body. You're not your body, you're not your emotions, you're not your thoughts. But usually people identify themselves with the emotions, with the
Being
thoughts.
mad, being happy, being sad.
Exactly. And that's what you do with meditation, that you find a distance between your feelings, between your thoughts. And from a distance, as we all know, you can have a better look at things rather when you're right into them.
So is that like the premise of detachment?
Yeah, in a way, yeah.
Emotionally
Yeah.
detaching.
Detaching in terms of not pushing away, but just observing, taking as it is.
But neutrally, you always say, neutrally, not without judgment
Without judgment, yeah, exactly, without judgment. Yeah.
and allowing
Yeah.
yourself to have the thoughts.
Allowing to have it, yes, of course. Welcome everything that's in there with you. Don't
Accepting that it's there.
push it away. Accept
But-
that it's there, but don't get into it as not being overwhelmed
Because
by
we can veto, we can cancel things, we can say no to certain things. And that's, I don't know whether that's something that comes with maturity that you start to understand, or maybe, probably not, but it just has to do with spiritual evolution, I think. But you can really decide, I'm not going to have that thought, or I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole
Exactly.
of thought right
Exactly.
now. And then you sit there and you filter these thoughts that you have on a daily basis. And if you could really monitor it and put it up, write it down in a journal, or write it down on a piece of paper, it would shock most people, most of us,
Yeah.
how much we self-sabotage by allowing these external energies to have so much of an effect. Part of it is human, but if you were speaking to someone now about looking back over your life now, and they asked you, which I'm asking you, what is it that you most love about life?
What I most love about life,
Yes.
looking back now,
Yes.
I guess really that I, for my personal life, that I turned into this spiritual to way. That I kind of learned to listen to my heart. Good company. I love good company. I love inspiring talks, thoughts, films, music. Always loved music, of course.
Of course.
And I love to eat.
Yeah, me
That's
too.
the next thing when we come to the lifestyle. Yeah, that's what
If
I
you,
love.
if you had to say in simply what it is that you don't love so much about existence or life or the world that we live in, what would it be?
It's something, unfortunately, we see way too often is war, destruction, intolerance.
Yeah.
This is something that's, to me, so stupid in a way, because we all share this planet, and yeah, tolerance to me is very important. And exploitation,
Yeah.
other people, other countries, Mother Nature, our nature. So that's what's
The whole
really
thing.
not nice.
It's just the abomination of humanity and the lack of, I think, understanding that we're all human and mammals, animals, whatever.
Yeah.
But sharing this planet together.
Sharing this planet
And if
together.
we could make that simple, equation and understand that simple equation, it would make
Yeah.
such a difference. Who is this? Is the
This is the autobiography of Paramahansa Yogananda,
yeah.
in his yogis. And that was a very inspiring book to me, actually, before, or when I started with my yoga teacher
It's like the
education.
yoga Bible kind of thing, or
Well,
not really.
I wouldn't say so. It's just a very interesting story. Actually, when he was still alive, he probably would be on your project.
Oh no! Okay, all right, cool.
Because he's just describing how he became a yogi.
How he became enlightened.
Yeah,
Oh.
and it's very inspiring. It's written in a very lovely way, very warm, poetic words.
Human.
Yeah.
Human way.
Yeah.
And he was a normal, everyday person, or he was born into enlightenment in the special line. I know, like in lineage with Buddhism, sometimes there's a lineage.
No.
He was a
He was
normal
born
person.
normal person, but he realized, or his inner longing was, I guess there was already a longing within him that to become what he became.
And how long did he live? Did he live to get an older man, or a younger person, or?
I don't know how old he got, actually. Would have to.
But these stories are the basis of his life stories, and his experience are the basis of this sort of guide or journal or documentation of a well-known or a lead yogi,
but
a master yogi.
Yeah, and it's also giving you a little introduction into yoga, not the asanas, what we consider yoga. Yoga is a lot more than just the body work. So he gives introduction to that, which to me was very interesting.
Very inspiring.
Inspiring.
In closing this this talk, this speaking together, this coming together, I would say, if you wanted to say to the world, this was funny because when we're looking at the question, like, how do you say this without seeming morbid? No, but if you you're like, okay, especially when you start getting on like our age group, it's just like you want to say it nicely. But if it is, as life were to and the world were to evolve and go on, in one sentence, in terms of I was here, I was here. I lived. I loved. I was here. I gave. You know, what is it that you would want people to say in just one or two sentences about Marion Lesniak?
Wow, that's a big question.
I know. I know. I know.
Well, I guess, or what I would hope for is that I could inspire some people, especially in my age group, to not stay in stuck situations or
Hallelujah.
in
Yes.
jobs you don't really want, but really listen to your heart, listen to what you so really wants, what your aim here is really on this earth, and go that way. And when you're into it, when you trust, when you put all your focus on it, then somehow the door will open and you will find the proper way. And if I can do that, that would be more than I could expect.
Well, I can tell you without doubt, Marion, I know that you have inspired me and many, many, many other people in that direction. And if there's a legacy that I will remember from you as life goes on every day, it is that the sun always rises as another day, and to have faith with the process of life. So thank you for being with us here. We really do appreciate it.
Thank you.
Namaste.
Namaste.